get out of the dollar.
Right.
At the same time, simultaneously, right? And they owe the Chinese a zillion dollars, okay? And they thinking, well, since the Chinese, we owe them so much money, they can't do nothing with us, and they're gonna say, forget you guys. No, we're gonna do our own stuff, you know what I mean? And you owe us. So whatever you do, and then the world, which way is the world going? The inertia of the world, you know, the inertia in the car, we used to put our hand out before seatbelts so the baby wouldn't hit the windshield. I don't know if y'all remember that. But you was driving, everybody automatically did like this if they had kids, because they automatically knew. They, don't let, but now, so that means the body inside of the vehicle continues to move forward. So they won't be able to say, stop inflation, stop this, stop that, it just keeps going. Okay? They can't give China a lecture and say, your Belt and Road Initiative, we want you to stop. It keeps going. The credibility of the United States, its money, and you would have to live overseas from time to time to understand how big and grave this thing is. You got to remember, like saying the dope trade, that means there's trillions of dollars. Like all the people outside the United States save American dollars. Right? All of the people, whether in Iran, whether in South America, all the big money deals are done in American dollars, not in pesos. So all the big Colombian deals in cocaine is done in dollars. Okay. You think that they only owe these trillions of dollars, they just up to the 2-3 trillion that loan everybody? No, it's not like that. Or it is $18 trillion or 20. It ain't like that. Here's why. Outside of America, everybody, since I can remember, and I know it personally over 50 years, so it's been going on longer than that, save their money in dollars. Right? So, the Treasury here estimates how much money they're saving. They're putting away, taking it off the market. Over there, everywhere. And guess what they do here? They reprint. Colombia has, let's see, 20 years ago they was going to pay the national debt $4.5 billion. And they have crates of money, like, I don't know if you ever seen some of the raids they have. They have pallets of $100 bills. Pallets. Okay. Boss man, he estimates the money in circulation here. And he estimates how much is down there in vaults and everything, and everywhere else. And he prints more money. He prints and prints and prints. Since everybody say it's all right, he can keep printing it. But what happens today? That's one of the reasons that we acquire property, so we can't go flat broke, because we got 8 pieces of property around that we own, right? Everything in Oakland, we own. Okay. What's going to happen to the dollar when everybody say, we want our money, we want our value in this dollar? The the dollar would be wallpaper. It happened to the British pound. Whatever country is in power, their currency becomes the coin of the realm. When the dollar before 71 was backed by gold, that's one thing, but the war did them so bad. The Vietnam War, they had to, and I'll tell you, I was overseas in 71, in August, when that money fell down. If I had $50,000 in my hand one day, the next day it was worth $40,000. The one day. Because the U.S. went off the gold standard, right? So overseas, that means, and that money started, everything changed in money. The German mark, on that day, was worth a quarter, 24 marks per dollar. A few years later, it was 2 marks per dollar. I went to the bank right after that to change money, and they said, it's 3 point something or other marks per dollar. That's in one day. That's in one day. I said, good God Almighty, the brother is broke. I said, what are y'all doing? The dollar is off the gold standard. Ain't no more gold. They had to pay for the war in Vietnam. So they started paying for it in money. Can you imagine how rich those companies got? War-making companies, rifle-building companies, aircraft companies, Boeing and all of them got. It's just unbelievable.
So I say that's why we have these continuous wars, because they keep getting rich.
There's too much money.
They have to have, the military, Eisenhower, the biggest general in U.S. history, except for MacArthur, said, beware of the military-industrial complex. When he went out of office in 1960, remember? That was his best lecture. Beware of the military-industrial complex. Before, when you have a war, you build up for the war, and after that, you send everybody home, and there was no, your old equipment, it would get old, and you wouldn't, you'd be riding horses. They was riding horses up until the 30s, cavalry, you know what I mean, right? They didn't get aircraft carriers till way up in the 30s, right? So they didn't build up for war. Now they always build. That's the economy. That's the economy. And only those people that work directly in the military industrial complex, directly in those factories, or the ones that benefit are the factories themselves. And who keeps and makes sure they got it? Why? There's always a war, because the CIA and all of those people are all linked to that. They keep them wars going
That's their job.
so they can keep having money. Because they get their kickback and they get their, okay, eventually that wears out. And that's what's happening today. That's why we mentioned some of these things that we wanted to mention today, and we definitely mentioned psychoparalysis. Psychoparalysis is a type of self-trained hypnosis where you delude yourself, you paralyze yourself, self-paralysis. There's nobody paralyzed in the United States government. It's self-paralysis. It can't do anything, it won't do it, it can't do anything, and it won't do anything. And we're just telling them that you paralyze yourself. Why you do that to yourself? Because at every stage in history, the great power does that to itself. They have constant wars that they don't win. So the Romans was constantly fighting the barbarians. And the barbarians don't know they're not supposed to move Romans, and they keep moving. Empire is the cathedral thing around that you drive around in the Colosseum, right? In Rome. And there's no more Roman Empire, right? And nobody could come and put the Roman Empire back together. Mussolini tried, but it wouldn't work. Couldn't do it. The British Empire, the sun never set on the British Empire. All over the world. Can you imagine to be that big? That whenever the sun is rising, if it's down in the islands or in the U.S., it's dark over here. Well, it's light in Asia and everywhere else. And wherever the sun goes to shine, there's part of the British Empire. And it's all gone. It's all gone. The great American Empire. Can you imagine how fast this thing is going? It's going right before our eyes. And nobody seems to understand. No. Tons of people understand. But they're not functioning together to get some use out of it. Okay, that's our job. Okay. So you says, well, you had a chose a big job. So what? If we see the job that has to be done, we just have to try to rise to the occasion to do it. Just because we're sitting here on Benning Road, don't mean that we can't do it. Right? It doesn't mean that. And it does mean that as the world is looking at the same thing we're looking at, there are people in the world that are seeing the world through the same vision that we have. And those people began to coalesce and come together. So that's why we call the grand strategy flawless psycho-negroid implementation. I know it makes the white man mad. We always put some in there that psycho, the grand strategy, flawless psycho-negroid implementation. And guess what? It always works. Tell the truth now. Over the last, I don't know how many years, since anybody have been here, we have not miscalled any political or social trends. I mean, they're all written down. We've all talked about it. Okay, so that means that boss man gets mad when we talk like this. Because it's almost certain, you know what I mean, that it's going to happen. And remember, we always told the boss man, don't go over there and jump on those people. Boss man, don't go over there. Boss man, you got to leave your around on. Boss man, don't do this to those people. And you keep on doing it. And the same thing happened. Boss man, the Russians got run out of Afghanistan. What are you going to do? You got to leave it alone. Now, 20 years, he's just getting out. He's just getting out, and he's just getting his behind wiped by people who are professional butt kickers.
Is it true, somebody, I was talking today, even with them trying to leave, they're still trying to make some arrangements like in Pakistan to build some type of bases or something like that?
Of course. No, they remember on our t-shirts and everything, these things, they always got a plan.
Right.
They always will constantly be trying to implement some ridiculous plan. I mean, they're not going to give up. If they would give up on those ridiculous plans, they would be joining with us and say, well, we're going to fund you so many $1 trillion to get your hand-holding love fest going with the world. But they're too stupid. See, when you go down, you're locked in. That's why the Quran uses that term. Don't worry about it, give him time. But this, he's locked in. And that's the way America is. It feels very strange to give these forecasts and these predictions and for them to come out like they are. But it ain't us. There they are in the Quran. Right? It ain't us. They thinking, them niggas gotta stop talking like that, making that stuff. We're not making it up. All we're doing is sitting there, right, tell the truth.
That's true, man.
It's all right there in the Quran, talking that stuff, and we're not doing none of that.
It's just all love, man.
It's all right there. It's simple as that. We don't have, hey man, you almost 100 years old, 70-something years old, can't hardly walk around the block. Well, you can. You can't do nothing, right? It can't be you, right? But that's part of the psychological warfare. Since you don't believe in Allah, then, hey, we're going to scare you to death. Okay, may not think that they are. Every time we open up, you can tell look at the amount of things that happen to our community nationwide. And everything we do all the time. How can they not be seeing us through their eyes? I mean, white folks' eyes, them niggas is dangerous. Those niggas, and then they scared too. Cause see, if it was a common Negro, Martin Luther King, Malcolm, they all, okay. But we're using psychological warfare on them. We know what we're doing, and we scare them to death. You mess with me, Crocker. Shoot, you mess with us, the same thing happened. You mess with any other Negro. But he's been keeping score. Now, you gotta imagine, his scoreboard looks way different than ours, because he's not used to the Negro being right on nothing. Imagine we've been right and he knows it about things we're not even thinking about. That boy is paranoid, and we're making fun of him at the same time. We know what we're doing, right? That's what you have to use. You have to use the tools that Allah gives you. You can't use their tools. We're going to go get a rifle and shoot the white man. People is crazy, right? Absolutely not. We're going to match them with this, that, other. Look what we got here. The thick of extreme circumstances. Now, this is just for us now. We ain't going to get out of them and talk to everybody about this thick. But we are using thick for thick of extreme circumstances. That's the thick that was, we're abstracting that thick, right, out of the circumstance that existed before. Remember Quran, remember the Sunnah, remember traveling the earth and see what was in of those before you, and then us, how this looks to us. We filtered it through that. That's the thick of extreme circumstance. The thick, and this is years ago here, the thick of non-human warfare. This is back in 2013. Why the thick of non-human warfare? Because by that time, you could see that they're getting into the stage, and it's moving quick now. See, okay, if you go back in the late 90s and early 2000s, things was happening fast. But right now, bam, it's almost an explosion in the increase in, you go from 1 gigabyte to a zillion gigabytes. Just like that, you know what I mean? Because this is modern time, you see. So, what used to, if you watched certain movies in 2000, early 2000, what was that one with Will Smith? Will Smith was a lawyer.
Enemy of the state.
Enemy of the state. That stuff was up to date for them. But the FBI was still, they had the telephone poles, you know, outside of the Italian restaurant, spiked, with old spikes they used to use in my time. If they wanted to bug you, they put a spike, that's what they call it. They nail the thing into your woodwork in your house or your floor, and if they could pick up. That must have been around 93 or something, something like that. But by that time, they were showing you they got their satellites that can pick up every way you can run in the city. Okay, that was reasonably true, but now it's overwhelmingly true. They were still, in those days, still using bugging telephones. Then they went to pointing the thing at the telephone, at your window to pick up stuff, and they can pick up. And then the stuff, the last 20 years, it's the Psychozoic age, as we call it. But anyway, the point is, they can't keep up with us. And they don't know when we're flim-flamming them or playing with them. And you gotta remember, we never gave up on the old-time Negro. Because the FBI, and we said it and they still don't know what to do. The FBI could get people in the 60s because they knew where it was coming. They get people in the 90s and all that because they knew where it was coming from. They don't know the old Negroes back in 1910 and 19. See, I listened to my father. He was born in 1900, and I sat there as a kid listening to all them old men and the stuff they did to boss man to get what they wanted. Nobody in the 60s knew the FBI don't know none of that stuff. That's old Negro stuff. We got it down. That's why we're doing what we're doing. Well, Allah is the reason why, but what I'm saying is we made use of that mentality. See, we combined that old Negro stuff, mid 20th century, okay, 1960s and 70s,